This is Jessie Ann Nichols, George, and I'm out here exploring some of my own home territory today. Ironically, I've lived or had residency in the South Dakota area for almost a year now. It'll be a year next month, and never really had the chance to get out and explore because I've been traveling around and touring and doing all kinds of other amazing things along the way. And so this month's video, what I wanted to do is I wanted to talk about a topic that seems to be hitting a lot of people right now, and that is anxiety. And anxiety so many times has gotten a bad rap, right? We've, gotten this aspect of, hey, anxiety is a bad thing, it's going to wreck your health, it's this, it's that, it's negative. And yet anxiety is a great warning factor for us. It's actually a great piece of information for us, because what's happening with this is, yes, it does tend to come from the ego mind, and yes, it does come from the space of worry and panic and some of the lower vibrations, as we'd say. But this is also a really huge warning signal. And what it's there and what it's trying to help us realize is that it's not getting the comfort from our soul self. It's almost like our soul self and our ego self are separated. And when we have this separation in things, we know that things don't flow well. What it does is it creates competition. And when we have that competition, it creates fighting, it creates arguing, it creates conflict, which then our brains can't process, and it keeps us in a negative spiral that's going on. So if we really take a look at anxiety and we say, okay, anxiety is not my big enemy anymore. It's my friend. It's my warning signal. It is my human self, if you want to say that, asking for help, saying, I need to understand what the soul's going through. And this is part of the big bridging that we need to work on in today's society, because so much we're told we don't have to understand that. And on one hand, we don't. On one hand, we just need to be in the moment. We just need to enjoy things. But when our ego human self is freaking out, it is going to affect our soul self. It is going to affect that hope and that spirit and other things. So when we get down to this, well, what we want to look at, and excuse me for waving my hand every now and then, we got a few little fly buggies here. It's starting to warm up around the area. And so what it is it's saying, I'm not comfortable right now. And if we're really coming from our soul self, we're going to help that so-called ego, human side of us to get comfortable and to be comfortable. And this can take us into some really uncomfortable spots. And if we don't pay attention to this warning sign, if we don't pay attention to this panic button that's going off, then what's going to happen is we're going to have a lot of bumps on the road. We're going to have a lot of challenges on the road. It's going to get stronger. It's going to get harder. I know myself, I've hit points in my life, and I know of other people that have been hitting them, particularly lately. And we could say, oh, it's about the planetary alignments, it's about this, it's about that. But in reality, it's about how we're handling things. It's about what we need. And we have to bridge that gap. We can't be totally separate as long as we're in a human body. So when we look at that, what we want to do is we want to understand from this panic or this anxiety that's running through us, what is that about? What are we panicking about? What is the fear that's creating that? And oftentimes for people, when it gets really, really bad, what we're talking about is we're talking about a fear that is, for some people it starts off with just a basic fear of seeing things dwindle down in their life, having to give things up. But more and more people I'm seeing are really being faced with the fears of basic needs, basic security, home, shelter, food, things like that. And that's become a big panic for people. Now, we got a lot of stuff out there that just says, oh, don't worry about it. If you just live in your divine self, it's all going to be okay. And it's all going to go away and it'll be fine. But a lot of people today actually are finding out that's not the case for them. And they're not getting past it by the positive affirmations, and they're not getting past it by some of these other things. So I really wanted to touch on that today and go, okay, well, let's take a look and let's delve into this a little bit more. So if this is a panic button and this is our ego self that says, I'm not comfortable here. I need to have a concept of what's going on. If we don't share some of the information, if we don't share some of our thoughts and put some things into a so-called sort of plan stage, then it's really our soul self is actually coming from a controlling space, which is not helping us, right? Because we know when we're in that control space, we're really not in our soul self. Our soul self would provide the compassion and the comfort to our own self, our own ego self. And so I think that this is a really big piece in the midst of all of this. What we want to do in this phase is to actually come down and take a look and create a plan for ourselves. Lay out that plan, A, B, C, D. Here's my first option. This is what I'd really like to see happen. I'd really like the big windfall, win the lottery, whatever it is, right? And that would just make my life really easy, and I could go on doing what I'm doing and love all of that. Then option B is to go this route and take this type of thing and add this into the picture temporarily. And then route C is to do this, and route D is this. And get it down to what is the option you would fear the most. Okay, so I think I've touched on this in a couple of videos, but when we get down to it, lay it out and take a look at that and say, okay, what am I fearing the most? What would be the worst case scenario for me? Would it be losing everything I own, house, vehicle, the whole works, not having enough food to eat? Would it be having to look at it and not have any of those things to work with, not have any resources, so to say, to feel like I have no help, those aspects, and look at what is your worst case scenario. What does that look like for you? And then when you get down to it, I want you to then take a look and say, how do I make that worst case scenario an amazing journey? If I ended up in that place, now we don't want to dwell in this space. We don't want to put all of our thoughts into, oh yeah, that's what I'm going to create in life. But just really play with it and say, what amazing thing could I do from that space? What amazing adventure could I create from that space? And this is an important thing, because when you realize that you can have something great in each of the scenarios, as in, okay, I'm going to use this scenario to help me rebuild things. I'm going to use this scenario to pay off some bills, get myself stable, and then refocus back full-time into something, to this other aspect that I really want to focus on. There is no shame in doing this. And we're under times and influences, and we have energy running right now where there is a lot of negative energy. I'm just going to say it. There's a lot of negative energy out there. Whether we want to see it or not, there's a lot out there. And it's coming at us not to tear us down, but it's coming at us to ask us to be that much more determined, that much more persistent. And determination is another big piece of the anxiety aspect. And I say this because part of what anxiety does is it helps us get focused. And when we share that plan, then the mental space can ease up. The mental anxiety, the heartfelt anxiety can ease up, because in processing those different plans of action, it also helps us identify, okay, if I don't want to end up in plan D along the way, then I need to start getting these things in check first. And I need to look at these different options. And it's telling us, I need you to focus on this piece. I need you to focus on taking care of your basics for a while. I need you to focus on that. And that can be a real struggle for people, because they find that being a spiritual material world conflict. And some people might end up looking at that option D and go, you know what, actually that looks pretty darn good right now, and I think maybe I'll try that. But make sure you're really looking at it from a realistic aspect. If you're saying something like, yeah, let me just go on a pilgrimage and backpack it for a while and and give up all of that stuff, that's great, but make sure that you're really ready to be able to deal with those environments. And that means that you've got pieces to put into place if that's the case that you choose to take. And that's what it's getting us prepared for. Start to prepare your body to do with less. Start to prepare with these things, not from a space of deprivation, but from a space of strength, from a space of putting the value and the importance on what you feel is really valuable and important. So when I talk about this determination piece, what I'm looking at is the determination is how determined are you to get that message into the world? How determined are you to walk a certain path in life, to live a certain type of lifestyle, to be happy, to be joyous, to be peaceful, whatever that is for you. And this is just coming up, and I want to make it clear too that this is not the divine that is testing us, because the divine doesn't test us. It doesn't need us to, but it has, as its polarity, the negative aspects. Some people call it evil energy, some people call it whatever they call it. And it comes up to test us to see how strong we are. Not the divine, but the polarity energy does. And that is where it's saying, are you really determined? How committed are you to this message? You know, if you had to go back and work full time instead of doing your passion for whatever reason, or that was your choice to do, would you give up that 2 hours of TV and put it into your passion? These types of things. And, you know, it's okay to regroup. It's okay to stop and take those breaks so that you can go back out stronger than before. These are important things. And when we come down to the spiritual path, it's not about whether we get to a certain point at a certain time, or even so much that we get a particular message out, as much as it is, are we handling every piece of life in a spiritual way? And when we're handling every piece of life by spiritual laws, by spiritual ways, then we get the doors open. And this is amazing, because it is hard. It is hard to release sometimes. It is hard to let go and accept, maybe this is what I need to do. Maybe that credit card debt that's out there is really such a hindrance to me that it's blocking my spiritual flow of energy. So maybe what I need to do is stop and take care of that debt first. Everybody's going to be a little bit different in this process. So it's going to give us that checkpoint. Are you determined enough to keep your message going in the process? Are you determined enough to stay on that spiritual path? Because as we elevate, it takes more strength. It takes more determination. And that doesn't mean that it can't be easier, because it can. But we have to have those things. We have to have those abilities. If we're really going to pursue on some of those bigger levels that are the impacts that a lot of people are looking to make, that determination is going to be absolutely necessity in the process. So these are some big things. Anxiety is not our enemy. And if you're wondering, I made a couple of notes, and I don't want to miss some of the things that I put down out here. But yeah, you know, take that delving in. And what happens a lot of times is when these anxiety aspects come up, people look at it and they say, I have to fight this. I have to fight going this direction or that direction. I have to fight for my spiritual life. And this is an interesting thing, because there's a lot of people that would say, I don't think I'm fighting it. I don't believe that that's the energy I'm coming from. But in reality, a lot of times that's exactly where we're coming from. And we are doing it. I'm fighting this for a cause. I'm fighting this for a reason. And as long as we're fighting and we're coming from that fighting energy, conscious or unconscious, we're going to create more blocks for ourselves. We're going to create more challenges, more obstacles. We're going to be given more things to fight along the way. So when we stop fighting the process and we say, okay, well, you know what? I'm now down to plan C, which is this option. And, you know, that's going to allow me to keep this, this, and this, but I'm going to have to give up that, that, and that. And I'm going to have to work a little harder, get a little more focused, you know, refine my skills, and be a little more efficient in my processes, so on and so forth, and bring things out in a different way, in a different dimension, or a different place that I thought I might be going to. And you know, ride with that. And then if I end up in plan D, I'm not going to fight it. I'm going to find the best possible thing that I can do with it. Because that is part of finding the good in whatever's happening. That is finding our opportunities. That is where the divine resides. And that is when we're coming from our spiritual self. Okay? Not about whether I get this particular path through or that particular path, but how do I deal with what I'm presented with? Because when you're able to deal with it over and over and over and over again, whatever the circumstances are, whatever you're needing to do and take care of in things, and responsibility is a big piece. So if we're not being responsible, if we're keeping debts out there in the name of even pursuing our goals, and there's a lot of people that say, oh, just take this loan out, just take this financing out so that you can get your dream out there. Well, you know what? If it puts you in debt, it's not necessarily getting your dream out there, because you're working in conflict with spirit. And that creates another set of issues and challenges. And in reality, what I found is that people that are doing that are actually creating more challenges for themselves along the way. So, this is a powerful piece, and looking at it. So I hope you're going to take this, because this is going to help ease the anxiety. And no matter what we do, we have to constantly be adapting and adjusting, and maybe being placed someplace or taking an option you thought is a step back for you is maybe not really a step back. Maybe it's getting you to that stronger place that you've been trying to get to. If you just open up and figure out what you can do with that piece, with that situation of things. And, this is, I would say, gigantic right now. This is a piece that is huge, and taking care of responsibilities right now is huge, because that's in the planetary alignments, and that helps put us in the flow when we're in that aspect. So it's not about giving up, it's not about giving in, and even if it appears like a step back, it's not a step back. It actually isn't. And what happens through this process is we continue to flow through this over and over and over again. And we go through these different cycles and these different seasons and these different things that are needed of us. We're going to get in that flow, and we're going to find that beauty, and we're going to find that peacefulness. And it was really great. I saw a post recently, and it triggered a thought that I'm very pro of. And that is, when you look at the negative energy, it uses strategy. It uses wisdom a lot of times. And people don't want to admit that. That's a piece they don't want to look at. They say, no, it doesn't. No, it's not that way. But it does. And what happens to a lot of spiritual people is they don't use the equal wisdom along the way. They are so busy living in this trust. And I'm not saying trust isn't good, but trust has to be balanced with what works on this plane, in this planet, with where you're at right now, okay? Yes, we're these spiritual souls. Yes, we're all of that. Yes, we come from these other dimensions, but we're not in those dimensions at this moment. Well, maybe in a form we are, but in this moment we're here. So we've got to work with what's in this dimension. We've got to work with what's on this plane right now. And the reason that negative energy has built so much is because it's taken the time to do the strategies. It's laid the plans out. And that doesn't mean you're totally adhered to the plans, but it does have a plan. And it does open up to direction. And it does put these things in motion and in place. And it does have determination. And it is its determination that is what creates the challenges. So we have to become more determined than what challenges us. And really, isn't that all that polarity is? Isn't that it? It's a challenge to us. And the only question becomes, are you going to raise up and meet the challenge in this process? So hopefully this has helped some of you open up to a new perspective on anxiety. And hopefully this will help some of you there. If you have anxiety about taking care of certain things, then start to learn how to take care of those things now, not when it shows up, not at the last minute. Anxiety is a way for us to have foresight. It's giving us foresight to what we need to take care of before we hit rock bottom. So if we pay attention to it And if we take care of it, and if we stop and take the time to put those pieces in place, we won't have to hit rock bottom. Hey, I hope this has really helped you out on this monthly's video. I know it's been a little longer than my last few, but you know, get out in nature. It's going to relieve some of the physical anxiety, but also take the time to do the other pieces. Hey, you can check out all of my work, everything that's going on, follow where I'm at, follow what I'm doing. I'm probably going to be doing some more online stuff in the upcoming months and just regrouping and regathering some of my own energy right here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Hey, it's been great to come to you today. You can check all my work out on my website, Jessie N. Nichols George, the1.com. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye, and have a great day.